Good evening. Welcome to Spectrum Voices Conversation. We're here 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. UK time and 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this is the part where we go through the Facebook posts and just share and then just follow on discussion from that. So I'll just crack on and get into it from the most recent ones, as I usually do. The first one is shared from the autistic teacher, who is a public figure, autistic and proud, sharing insight and understanding to help the autistic community. And they've shared, it's quite short and sweet actually. Basically it's a question but a point. There's always articles on how to be more social and social interaction. Why is it always us? I want to see more articles on how to be quiet and reflect.
And it is what Morris just said, isn't it, really? We look at that, and then we go quiet, and then we start reflecting on it. It doesn't make an enormously good radio broadcast to have such silence, but it is who we are, isn't it? And I am quite sick of people asking us to be more loud and be more like them.
I suppose you can always use creative search words to find the quiet and reflect. Sort of downtime, calm, using time by yourself.
It's one of the most important things about us, isn't it?
Well, you need to deliver something from the reflecting to make it important.
I don't know, do we? I mean...
Well, just to make it important, so just be a piece of your own time.
Yeah, but, isn't that... I mean, I'm in a country at the moment where there's a lot of religion going on, and, Buddhism and Sikhism and Hinduism and stuff, and... even the Judeo-Christian situation, it's a lot. What's taught in all that stuff is about self-reflection, meditation, being quiet. The world just isn't like that. It's just noisy, and it's noisier than, isn't the Post saying, why are we constantly asking for more social and more interaction?
Well, we may not be, that just maybe wanting us to, prodding us to.
Well, yeah, that's what it's saying. You say we're always being asked to adapt and be more social. We'll actually put the thing on the other foot and actually do some of the things that are in the culture that are part of religions that actually say be more reflective and shut the fuck up.
What I take from it is what's already been said actually, is it's like people with autism, autistic people, are told to mould and to mask and to try and fit in with the so-called social norms. But there never seems to be the other side where you can turn that over and just think, well, it doesn't always have to be interaction, it doesn't always have to be noise, it can be nice and calm and reflection. And less noise, less stress, less people. So that's what I take from it. It's just like, it's saying that what we are doing is basically wrong and we should do our best to fit in rather than, no, there's different ways of doing things. Sometimes it's social interaction, sometimes it's reflecting quietly. That's why I kind of go forward. And it's like, the autistic people are always get the blame. Why is it always us?
True enough. I don't want to be like them. I've been having experiences recently where I'm absolutely at the centre of attention every single day. I'm the only white person an awful lot of the people around here have ever seen in their lives. I am being stopped in the street for selfies, myself and my wife. All that attention, all that noise, all that bustle. And I'm constantly looking for places to go away and be quieting.
Yeah, I can totally respond to that. Maybe not the beginning part, but the thing of being somewhere busy or being something quite, even if it's enjoyable, you do feel the need the recovery period to go where somewhere quiet and just go relax and basically recover from all the sensories and all the oversensory stuff you sometimes get with when you're in somewhere quite busy. The next one is from Pete Warmby, who is a writer, an autistic author. Describes himself as autistic writer and speaker on autism and autistic lived experience. And it's just an update. It's the first time I've kind of shared this one, but it's an update from himself. And what they say is, I spend much of my life travelling around doing talks and training on autism to companies, charities, schools, the NHS, universities, and so on. It's very interesting, and I love explaining autistic experience and what could be done to improve things. But it's hard to access if you don't work for those organisations. So from January 2024, I'm going to offer bi-monthly open evening-long online discussions talking about autism, being neurodivergent and how things can be improved for autistic people, and that are open for anyone. And it costs about £15. And there'll be a space for a question and answer session and discussions, as well as lots of tangents. And it will be perfect for autistic people looking around to understand autism better, and for non-autistic people who live, work, or play with autistic people in any capacity. And this is, the first one's going to be on Wednesday, the 24th of January, 2024, at 7 p.m. UK time.
It's a bit like autistic radio, isn't it? But something that you pay for, but I suppose, he's got the following and he's got the reason to charge for it. So, it's another good thing out there, isn't it?
Yeah, with Q&As, which he must be feeling up to answering and taking questions live.
Yeah. I think that's something we have to encourage as much as we can, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I wonder if it'd be interesting talking to us and promoting what he's doing. I'm very positive about it.
Yeah, well, I'm looking at the picture, I wanted to kind of read out the text first, but the picture, it's got, I don't want to say bland, it means it's not too over the top either for autistic eyes, making the world better for autistic people. And it's quite a good layout.
It is. I like the design because it reminds me of the old-fashioned festivals, the old free festivals that used to go to, Festival Eye, that kind of thing.
Yeah. It's on Zoom. It's £15, and online seminar and discussion. So, yeah, I'll support them.
Well, I think what we ought to do is give him the opportunity to come speak to us. I mean, possibly too busy, quite a big fish in the autism world, isn't he? But yeah, you can only give people the opportunity and see if they want to take it up.
Yeah, and they don't obviously need to do it right away anyway. It can be down the line. So it's an opportunity, absolutely. The next one is my blog.
I always like this. Inspired Mind, Harry's blog. Embracing the senses. There's been a lot of discussion of autistic people feeling the oversensitivity that surrounds us. Overbearing migraine-inducing sights, overwhelming smells, and resist to touch. Many of these are involuntary exposure to the public. Maybe it's time to turn this on its head. Oversensitivity can go the other way. The appreciation of sounds, such as enjoying music, embracing sights, such as the colours of autumn, strong love of tasting a favourite meal and enjoying a loving hug. All of these are by choice and within the boundaries of comfort. If autistic people suffer the negative senses more than the neurotypical, we must enjoy the positive more than the neurotypical. Think about it like that, Harry. I think that's really lovely, Harry. And I agree with every part of what you're saying.
It was following on what we were discussing quite a while ago about the oversensitivity of noise like dogs barking, etc. But turning it round, because at the time, I think it was that long ago, we were actually talking about the heat of the summer and knowing how this come from. Maybe we're feeling it a lot more than the neurotypicals. But I remember the conversation turning round to more positive, and there was a few people in the conversation were giving examples of the senses that they appreciate, that they feel that are probably positively more stronger than the neurotypical, and how it's great and how we should embrace that rather than always kind of regret and frustration at the negative side of it. So that's what that was about. Keep it short and sweet, and maybe inspire people to think about it that way, and maybe, just turn things around a little bit.
So they'll be wanting lifted up senses. This maybe they can have with focus. But yeah, I think going to be palettes of colours. Something I've come across said in this vein.
Can recall maybe I think Julian may have mentioned it. It was about the walking in a park and see the colours of autumn. The changing colours of the trees, the leaves, and if it's a nice bright day, just the colours, and it's just a nice sensation, and maybe a bit more stronger than the so-called neurotype. And typical person that may not kind of notice that brilliance, that experience, and it's about taking it on, embracing it. We talk about sound. The reason I kind of put this blog up is what I've noticed is I really enjoy listening to music. And sometimes really it feels that there's this kind of surge. It's kind of very powerful, very positive. And I'm just wondering, is that the artistic sort of sensory thing that other people may not have? And I should embrace it a lot more. And I certainly do. I mean, I do it quite a lot. I listen to music quite a lot, probably every day, to be honest. So it was that sort of example. And I hope that would kind of maybe inspire other people to either realise that or maybe have that sort of positive kind of sensation explained.
It's reframing, isn't it? It's reframing your sensitivities as a positive thing to embrace, that you can enjoy sensations much more deeply and intensely. And I like that kind of reframing.
Yep. Certainly makes things a lot more enjoyable if you think it that way. It's like taking a negative or a bad experience and flipping it over to something more positive. If not a positive experience, a positive mindset, or maybe a better experience in the future. So that's what it's all about. The next one is from someone we've actually been in contact with, Christine Armstrong, self-employed motivational speaker from Vancouver, Canada. And he shared, this is another kind of quote, and he shared what he basically says is, stop apologising for being yourself. Being apologetic is a great, but not when it's taken away from who you are and meant to be as a person. And I can understand that part. So some people feel they're apologising for the way they are, even though they're doing no wrong, out of embarrassment, or maybe they feel that, they're making people uncomfortable. That's what I kind of took from it.
I really wish autistic people could learn to reduce the amount of self-deprecation and apologies that they make, because I think it's a negative and it damages our self-esteem. We've been taught so often to apologise for being ourselves, and it becomes such a routine. It's something to escape from.
Yes, you're absolutely right, Julian, about it's like you are taught to be apologetic even though that sometimes, or even most of the times, you don't need to apologise. I've kind of done it myself. If sometimes I get overexcited and make a noise, it's like, oh, sorry, I need to calm down sort of thing. And then I'm going, what am I apologising for? I'm not doing any harm. I'm just kind of happy, enjoying the moment, not being over the top. It's just one of those automatic things that sometimes we should remind ourselves not to be so hard on ourselves around other people. Self-judging, etc. The next one is just sharing an old podcast, the podcast Revisit. And what shared was the autism passions. And it was art, self-therapy through art, in terms of poetry, in terms of music, in terms of other kinds of art. Basically, artistic endeavours should not be trivialised or pathologised. Art is a broad term for self-therapy, and that was done, time has flown, in June. And I can recall, I think I led that one. I listened to a part of it when I was posting. And from what I recall, that was a very good conversation, a very good positive discussion.
It seems so long time, such a long time ago, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It just shows you how many things that we've done in between times. We need to come back to that again. That's a recurring subject. I'm sure that there's going to be people that want to join us to talk about different aspects of this.
Yeah, we've just been that busy. The next one is from Neurodivergent Rebel. Public Vivarera, queer, trans, hyperlexic, autistic, ADHD, educator, artist, and best-selling author. And what they're saying is, as an autistic person, I find it very frustrating when I say something very specific, meaning exactly what I said and nothing more and nothing less, and someone then decides that there is a hidden meaning in my words, assigning intentions to my words, saying I'm implying when I'm not. Can anyone relate?
Very often. I often think they interpret what you say to fit their view of whatever you're talking about already and make a confirmation bias, even if it's not there. But they change it to be what they think it ought to be.
Yeah, I can understand that. Because you can say something, to the point, and that's exactly what you mean, but someone's trying to say, and they probably don't mean any bad intention by it, but they're kind of, it's like they're finishing it off for, even though it's already finished. Finishing off your sentence or finishing off your point, even though there was no need for it because you've already completed it. It can happen. It must be very patronising and very frustrating.
It's when you're in a ideas argument and they make what you've said about your view sound more like their view than it really is. That's the worst one, to just unstick yourself from the kind of sticky trap.
I think I've been in that situation myself more than once. It's just life. It's full of, I don't like to say traps, but it's just a lot, there's so many things to navigate through. I suppose that's what life is all about, but some things that do come up, it's unbelievable what people do, with good intentions or not. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
It's an excuse often to dismiss what we say as well, isn't it?
Yes. Think knowing that, yes, it can.
And we're trying to be clear. We're trying to be very specific. But somebody wants to take that and use it's a technique to shut us up.
But it won't work.
Well, we're the people with the radio station here, so to some extent it won't work in one very specific way.
I've just tried to put a positive on that, but yeah, unfortunately it does stop a lot of people actually talking and getting involved, so it is very true what you are saying.
We have a voice, and, if this is happening to us, then realising it, saying it to each other, means we can diffuse it. And I think that's what the poster's trying to do there, is say, look, this happens. We know it happens. Share it amongst ourselves and we can combat it.
The next one is from Emergent Divergence, the Neurodivergence Ramblings of David Gray Hammond, an author of The New Normal, Autistic Musings on the Threat of a Broken Society. And there's a couple of things, it's one thing shared, but it's a picture and also a bit of text. And the poster, the picture, it says, autistic people do not need to be mourned. Our existence is not a tragedy. If a professional tells you to grieve your autistic loved one's diagnosis, stop seeing that professional. No matter their struggle, no matter their perceived value of their individual existence, they have value, they have life. Do not grieve the living. Grieve the society that views disabled people as something less than alive. Wow.
Have we come across these attitudes? You know, it sounds like this kind of American world where, you know, does it happen here in the UK that people are told to, oh, I'm so sorry that you have an autistic child or that you've got an autistic... Does it happen?
Well, people can, if they're not much knowledge on the subject, I think they can think of it then the default to the severity image. I actually have known a guy, only slightly, sort of face who pops up occasionally in politics things here and there, but he popped up at number 6 briefly, showing that he'd been diagnosed, but I had rather suspected he was one of us. God, no, 10 to 15 years before that, when I had mentioned to him, it's, I'm not putting this very well, it's because of irony in his actions that I kind of looked at his social way and thought maybe he is, because his reaction when I had said that I was autistic. Are you? I thought you were just quiet.
Yeah, I get it. I see the irony here.
Right. Yeah. I haven't experienced it myself, but I believe it must be experienced in this country as well as America, because people's attitudes, and some people try to be nice, and if they don't understand what autism is, and it's relating to a child, especially if a child isn't so-called the norm, and people look at autism as being something wrong with the child, it's like the sympathy plays. And if the doctors are trying to, or the professionals are trying to kind of maybe balance it in a way that it's taken seriously as an issue, but doesn't want to maybe overstep the mark either. But yeah, I can understand both sides. It's certainly not for mourning, but there's this kind of thing, you know, the so-called norm is neurotypical, and if you're not that, it's a tragedy within itself, even though it's a nonsense because everyone's different. Everyone has their strengths and they've got their things that they feel they need to work on, they're not so good at, or whatever. But it's an interesting point, though. Sometimes things like that need to be bluntly said, because maybe they're said too often. Maybe that attitude comes across too often elsewhere.
Yeah, I think linking it to the word grieving is very powerful, isn't it? Because, you know, a parent can often be put into that situation where they immediately feel that there's a loss. The child that they imagined is not going to be that child. It's not going to speak, or it's not going to achieve in the way, it's not going to follow in the father's footsteps or the mother's way of doing things, and so they immediately are called to to feel that there's a big loss, that it's almost as though the child that was going to be has died for them. And autism really isn't like that. It's not a brain damage, it's a difference.
The next post was shared from Brightfire Community Interest Company, non-profit organisation, and a mental health and wellbeing service run for autistic people by autistic professionals. It's about the personal independent payment applications. I often get asked how to get through a PIP assessment, and there are many tips for successful application as an autistic/ADHD person. Many people can't face the process, and I can understand why. It can be crushing for self-esteem. I have cancelled PIP assessments myself because I couldn't face it. Has anyone found advocates or organisations like the Citizens Advice Bureau helpful? Did you get turned down and have an appeal? If you have words of encouragement or advice for your peers, I'd love to hear it. And it's relating to England and Wales, as it says on the post. And Brightfire did thank us for sharing the post, and they've put the original post in the comments for anyone who feels that the information can help them.
Yeah, I think we can trust Brightfire will have created a useful resource there. So, if PIP is something that is in people's to-do list, then finding that Facebook page and following the link that is on Harry's share, I think, is a good thing to do.
I have not particularly on the benefit, but I do understand the benefit system in terms of how uncomfortable and not very nice experience it could be going through the application process, because these sort of forums, they're set up in a way to try and catch people out from telling lies, it seems. Well, it's a bit more deeper than that, but that's the impression it gives you. And basically a lot of it is asking about your worst day. I think it's changed slightly and it's a bit more positive now, but in my experience, it's talking about your worst day. What can't you do if you're in a real bad way? And because you're trying to be positive about autism, it's a hard thing to go through, because autism, it's not about the autism itself, it's more about how society relates to the autism and makes you feel anxious, depressed, all that sort of stuff. So, and I've had money stopped and then having to go to an appeal process and all that, which can be very exhausting and very, it really hits you hard in terms of self-esteem, especially if you've built up years and years of trying to, or not trying to, but you've built years and years of getting yourself confident and, getting to get up and go in you, and then having to go through that sort of experience so that you get financial support because you're not working or not been able to work. It's very draining. So that's why I did that as well.
I remember this from the 80s, when I was young and unemployed, and, as a weirdo, people weren't really willing to look at me, but it was time of high unemployment. And it was always about tricking you out of it. It was always about trying to create a sanction. And it hasn't stopped for 50 years. And it's the wrong attitude. It's the wrong system. And it'll be the same in other countries. I would just say to people, you are absolutely entitled, and don't let the system make you feel that you are not. You are entitled. You're a citizen of a country, and if you can't work, you also can't go out and create your rightful place, which would be to go out into the woods and farm for yourself. Our society is built in this whole structure of rules, and you don't have an alternative. So they have to the society that you live in, that you follow the rules of, has to make it so that you have a way of surviving. And you are absolutely entitled and a valuable member of the society, because there are no other options given to you. So do not feel in any way, people out there, that it's your fault. Fight for your money, fight for what you deserve and your benefits and your entitlement.
Absolutely. Totally agree with that, Julian.
I'll sign up to the societies are ever less than they should be. So constant effort.
Yeah. The next post, is from Divergent Empowered. And they're a disability service, autistic, ADHD, neurodivergent, on authenticity, architecture, and soul-aligned Phoenix friends. And I shared a couple of things on the post. In the picture, saying the most powerful person is someone who decides their self-worth is not a group decision. 100%. I've seen a lot of neurodivergents settle for being useful in their friendships as a trade-off for the perceived lack of ability to be liked for who they authentically are. You are worth purely because you exist. It's not up for negotiation.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's difficult, but it's your own individual tenacity and strength that decides what your self-worth is. You shouldn't allow the peer pressure and the whole group to put you down. You have to fight against that. It's difficult, but that's just it. You know, that's basically the life struggle, isn't it?
How needed this message was in the heyday of cool youth culture, where you're the right sort of person on the way it's going with the crowd because you're tick all the right cool boxes. And that was also a time before the web, when it wasn't any likes of Facebook to circulate this on.
Yeah, the heyday is here. You know, this is human existence. It is always the group against the individual. It's never changed. It exists for young people now. I mean, there's more diversity and more opportunity to find their own group. That's the thing. That's what you're saying about Facebook, I reckon.
What about the web as a whole, actually? The empowerment of sharing information.
Well, okay, yeah, the web as a whole. Yeah, I agree with you. You can find your own place. But it's still here. You know, all of these things are still here. You have to stand against the group forever. That's it.
Story of my life. I'm proud to say. You know, stand the ground, be different, know your self-worth. The next one is from Autistic and Living the Dream. That's a personal blog. Someone sharing the experiences as an autistic, ADHD, OCD, queer person living in the UK. They, them. And what they've shared is another quote. I've kind of put a few in this week. A lot have been kind of hard-hitting and just catching my eye. And what they said is, what we don't need in the midst of struggle is shame for being human. And the quote is from Breen Brown.
It's that groupthink of judging others and trying to use shame, that feeling of shame, as a way of controlling other people and conforming in conformity. And the more people feel empowered to stand against conformity, the better for their self-esteem. It's a difficult one. It's a lifelong struggle. It's, you know, all the way from being a child and all the way through adolescence now. It never stops as an adult.
Battles of group shaming going on, and sometimes both ways across the net, back and forth.
Thanks everyone for for coming tonight. Thanks for the discussion. This is Spectrum Voices Conversation here every Sunday, 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. UK time, and 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, United States. So thanks everyone for taking part, and I'll see you next week. Thank you very much. Good night.